Hey, and welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. I just had a chance to ride here at Pandora, World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom, the new Flight of Passage ride, which is a pretty incredible ride that is breaking some new grounds in a lot of sensory domains. So let me take you on a video tour of that ride now. Okay, so we're looking at here one of many reference points within Flight of Passage, the Banshee ride at Disney's Animal Kingdom within the new Pandora World of Avatar land. And this is one of many examples within the ride and outside the ride where they talk about ecosystems, fictional creatures, and how their particular ecosystem works and how it's threatened and so forth. And as you go through the queue line, there's some really creative, techno-scientific-y, laboratory-ish stuff that you see going through the line. And it's one of many things you see as you're about to board the ride. And there's a second video I'm doing which is talking about lines and the frustration of lines and is it worth standing in line. So I won't get into too much of that here, but let me just say it took me 4 hours and 15 minutes from the time I was at the start of the queue line until when I was, and this is just about right when you're boarding the ride. I'll mention this video, amazing ride. It takes a lot of the sensory stuff that you can experience in rides in some senses and some things you don't experience, and it puts it all together. It's a very much a multi-sensory experience, and we'll get into this video about what that implies for the future of theme park rides, because I will say right now, not every theme park has the luxury of this level of development. Most don't. And I think it's a challenge in this era of theme park wars and roller coaster arms races and all this kind of stuff where there's competition for a very limited number of guests who like to go to theme parks, and museums are also dealing with this as well. So Disney continues to raise the bar in terms of creativity, in terms of capital investment, and so forth. It's a very cool ride. I think it's a ride that establishes some very creative things with guest experience, a lot of creativity in terms of the queue line. Again, with the demand right now in 2017, 2018, not likely subsiding, you have to do some very cool things in the queuing area because the guest is going to be waiting so long to board the ride. So now let me take you and show you, I'm not going to show you a video from the ride itself, obviously I can't do that, but I'll talk about some of the experiences and what this ride has meant for theme parks in general, as it does establish a pretty high bar in terms of creativity and capital investment in a theme park ride. Okay, it occurred to me that that might be the longest intro to a video about a ride that I've ever recorded. In fact, if you watch my videos, I take a bit of a different approach as we're looking at some of the queuing areas here of this amazing ride, A Flight of Passage at Pandora, World of Avatar, Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando, Florida, during my visit in November 2017. Checking out some of the petroglyphs here inside the queue area. But in any case, if you go on YouTube, you can find walkthrough videos, and I've always been curious about walkthrough videos, point of view videos of rides, because it kind of defeats the purpose of riding the ride. It gives you maybe a little bit of a sense of what the ride is like, but with a ride like this you really do have to experience it. And I guess I'll struggle throughout this video talking about, was it worth the 4 hours and 15 minutes? And we all quantify pleasure and experience and boredom in different ways. Certainly I will say this queue area is maybe the best queuing area I've ever seen. It's just Disney spends the amount of money on a queue area that maybe some companies spend on the entire ride, including the R&D, if it's a roller coaster or whatever. And so you think about the deliverables at a Disney theme park, and you're just I'm always just amazed at what they're able to do in terms of their capital. I've done a few other videos on Pandora. I'm doing another video on the line to get into these issues, but the issue of intellectual property I think is really key when you think about a ride like this, because in order to immerse a guest in an experience, if you have all that backstory and that foundation that is part of transmedia experiences, transmedia meaning you can watch the film, you can read a book, you can now experience a theme land and a theme park ride. So I think that's what makes this ride so captivating for me, is that it really has a foundation dimension within the world, the cosmology of Pandora. Not unlike the two Harry Potter rides that you get at the Wizarding World of Universal's Harry Potter theme lands. Same thing, right? You ride those rides and you really do experience the sense of immersiveness because of the fact that there is so much foundational material, backstory, whatever you want to call it, narrative that establishes for you, the guest, what you're experiencing. And I think it's one of the best things about both this ride, Flight of Passage, and also the theme land. I mentioned in my other video on the theme land itself, which you could check out, just how amazing the queue area is. And it's one of the things that I think Disney does so well. When I think back to my childhood days of when my family going to Pirates of the Caribbean, it's like, wow, the queuing area really puts you in the mood, right? And it's such a great technique. And you could see here the end of line marker here, which was pretty crazy to just think about how long we were waiting for this. And again, that's my question, or one of my questions for you today. And feel free in the YouTube comments to write your own experiences. How long did you wait when you rode Flight of Passage, and was it worth it? And I think that's one of the things maybe we could try to quantify in terms of what makes an experience like this amazing, or what makes it worth it. But yeah, in any case, when you think about the trick of the queue house, when it's themed, it's quite amazing in terms of theatricality, right? Essentially, we're getting guests to wait in line, in this case, a very long time. And I read, there's a really good story, by the way, in Vulture about just by Brian Bishop about the experience of the ride. And he was saying there that this ride was built to have a capacity or an ability to have enough guests to wait 6 hours in line, which is pretty amazing. Now, when we look at fictive animals, and I think Disney does a very cool thing with the theme land on the ride, it actually reminded me of all places, the Ark Encounter, which is a kind of Christian theme park in northern Kentucky. And because there they also have these, like, what they call proto-animals, or they're trying to imagine like animals in between dinosaurs and modern day animals. And I just think it's amazing what Disney did with this ride and the entire theme land in terms of creating this story of conservation, of ecosystems, of ecology, mixing actual and fictive flora and fauna, plants and animals, and using this ecological message as you go through this ride. This queuing area is very reminiscent of Kilimanjaro Safari and some of the other attractions at the non-Pandora theme lands in Animal Kingdom. And so that eco message, I think, is maintained here in Pandora, and it's one of the things I think is most innovative and interesting to me, the fact that they did something at this level of creativity and ability to tell this story that is consistent with the other theme lands. As you look at the queuing area of this ride, as you get closer and closer, it develops over time. So you move from the caves and petroglyphs to these very specific and more narrative specific driven context that you get about the banshee and the other creatures and so forth. Now, thinking about the great queuing areas, one of my favorites of all time, another Disney theme park ride, maybe you can guess this. This is the old Test Track from Epcot. And I think I have a video in the works, and it's like years in the works, where I'm complaining about the new Tron version of Test Track, because I thought the old queue house and the ride, by the way, of Test Track was one of the best rides ever, and I stand by that, and I don't understand to this day why they went with the Tron theme, but that's another video. Another one that's really good is Expedition Everest, and that is also in Animal Kingdom. So it's one you could check out. It has the whole Yeti myth or story, and it's just, they created this really cool, like, Himalayan experience that you go through the queue house. It's not as extensive as what you get at Pandora, Flight of Passage, but it's very cool, and again, very consistent. When you look down at the level of detail, and there's hidden Mickeys, and there's little winks at you and so forth, I mean, Disney does such a miraculous job just with the queue house, and I think it's one of the things we should never forget with theme park rides, is that need to have some rich storytelling experience before and after the ride. After is typically the gift shop and the restaurant. Before is the queue house, which is the trick of, getting us to wait longer than maybe we want to wait. Just look at this. This is Disney, like, in its fullest, right? I mean, they're doing this program here where they're talking about how you're matched up with a banshee and you're put into this system, and it's all computerized and technological. And I don't know if I really understand all this. It's been a while since I've seen the James Cameron movie, which was fine. It wasn't like my favorite thing, and I have said in other videos I think it's interesting with the backstory of Avatar. The fact that there hasn't been another Avatar movie since that first Avatar movie came out, I think is interesting, because with Star Wars and Potter, you have a rich, expansive narrative developing over the years in terms of the foundation and the transmedia that the guests can experience. This talks about how you do the linkage system, and I'll show you a little bit. Again, I'm not going to show you the ride itself, but I'll show you a little bit about just what happens when you go into the queuing areas. You get very close to ride. Again, this is like at the 4-hour point. Actually getting onto the ride, it's that like sense of excitement, like, wow, I'm actually going to ride it now, and I've been waiting all this time. And the particular day I visited, I think like 200 people or more probably left during during the queuing in the ride area. Okay, and we can look a little bit at the gift shop coming out of the ride. And I guess I haven't said up to this point, again, I'm not going to get into in this video, was the ride worth 4 hours and 15 minutes? For me, it was one of the best theme park rides I've ever ridden. I still would say Pirates of the Caribbean, because of its nostalgia and storytelling and just its longevity, is probably for me the best theme park ride as far as a dark ride. This one is very unique. I have to say, it's I'm still not big on the 3D glass experiences, wearing 3D glasses, whether it's this ride or the Harry Potter, but the way they've done it is pretty cool. They've taken a lot of the smell technology from, say, Soaring Over California, and they've really augmented it. And I have to say, there were a couple of moments where I was smelling stuff, like it was like flora stuff, like maybe mushrooms or fungi or something, going through this like forest. You basically get on this ride vehicle, and you're riding one of the banshees, presumably, but some of the smells that you experience as you're riding along and you experience this three-dimensional film, very, very innovative in terms of the motion. Some of the smells that I experienced, I actually couldn't pinpoint, and it was one of those moments where I'm like, whoa, this is really very innovative, just not even being able to like place what the smell was. And it's a very innovative sensory ride. The other thing that's really cool is as you're flying along, there's of course sound going on. Every sense is being used, and even the sense of touch. So what happens is with haptics, your sense of touch, as you're riding along, you feel the banshee breathing. Basically, the ride expands and pushes out your legs, and so it was one of those things where you're just like, whoa. And it's one of those bits that is reminiscent of the old Epcot ride, the Alien Encounter ride, which had a little bit where you felt like there was an alien or something like spraying at your feet, or touching your feet or whatever. So it's one of those things I think Disney delivers on so well in terms of the multi-sensory experience. So in the comments here on YouTube, you can offer your own thoughts on the ride. Was it worth it, the long wait? What did you like about it? Did it remind you of any other rides? And we can just kind of partake in a dialogue here about this amazing ride here at Pandora World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom, Flight of Passage. I hope you enjoyed the video feature today here, looking at the multi-sensory domains of the new ride, Flight of Passage, here at Pandora World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. Please come back for additional video features of the immersive World's Handbook.